Brexit trade talks have descended into chaos after the UK's chief negotiator David Frost launched into a furious attack against EU counterpart Michel Barnier, warning the stance from Brussels will have to change before the next round of negotiations on June 1. Mr. Frost was speaking following the third round of talks with the EU as they try to strike an agreement on a post-Brexit free trade agreement. But the UK's chief negotiator has been left furious by the lack of progress being made in talks, with London wanting a deal agreed before the end of the transition period in December. He raged the EU as insisting on including a set of novel and unbalanced proposals on the so-called level playing field, which would bind this country to EU law or standards, something Mr. Frost said is unprecedented in free trade agreements and not envisaged in the political declaration. The UK's chief negotiator warned that until Brussels changes its stance on this, further progress can't be made. Mr. Frost said, "We have just completed our third negotiating round with the EU, once again by video conference. I would like to thank Michel Barnier and the negotiating teams on both sides for their determination in making the talks work in these difficult circumstances. I regret, however, that we made very little progress towards agreement on the most significant outstanding issues between us. It is very clear that a standard comprehensive free trade agreement, with other key agreements on issues like law enforcement, civil nuclear, and aviation alongside, all in line with the political declaration, could be agreed without major difficulties in the time available. Both sides have tabled full legal texts, there are plenty of precedents, and there is clearly a good understanding between negotiators. The major obstacle to this is the EU's insistence on including a set of novel and unbalanced proposals on the so-called level playing field, which would bind this country to EU law or standards, or determine our domestic legal regimes, in a way that is unprecedented in free trade agreements and not envisaged in the political declaration. As soon as the EU recognizes that we will not conclude an agreement on that basis, we will be able to make progress." Mr. Frost admitted that while there have been many useful discussions around several elements on fisheries, the EU is refusing to give ground on its demands for access to British in a way that is incompatible with our future status as an independent coastal state waters. He warned the UK cannot agree arrangements that are manifestly unbalanced and against the interests of the UK fishing industry. Mr. Frost raged, "Although we have had useful discussions on fisheries on the basis of our draft legal text, the EU continues to insist on fisheries arrangements and access to UK fishing waters in a way that is incompatible with our future status as an independent coastal state. We are fully committed to agreeing fishing provisions in line with the political declaration, but we cannot agree arrangements that are manifestly unbalanced and against the interests of the UK fishing industry."